Hey, it did work. I hope y'all can hear me okay. But there's that. Let's see. So oh my gosh. I'm just checking in on the Instagram post to make sure that it went up and that the link works. Oh, cool. So, hey y'all. Sorry, it's kind of a weird, funny angle. I'm gonna try to accommodate so that you can see the pork here in this department. Also, hey, good morning. Good morning, everyone. I hope I don't get flagged for music copywriting because that's like not my goal currently. I hope that's enough light to see some sweet, sweet pork. Let's go. Okay, fam. So this is the work fridge. If you've been following along on Instagram, you're pretty familiar with what it looks like in there. But if you missed it, go ahead and head over there to check it out. And I'm going to try to frame it so that the meat is really the focus and that maybe I could still see what's going on in the shot. I was just checking the lighting to see if it looks good because the reflection is weird, but whatever. We're going to try to make this work. So this morning we're checking in on some dry aging projects. That includes, let's see, six roasts. 4 of them are hams, this being the first one. And then we have 2 kind of wild cards, this one being the one that I'm super excited about, which is the saddle from the pig. If any of you were not following along last week, I butchered a whole pig in my office last week, mostly because it was supposed to be a whole pig class, but that ended up falling through. But luckily, I do have these facilities available to me to utilize the entire pig. So I'm really stoked because now we get to try these really cool, fun projects. And y'all can come with me to see what it is that you can do with a whole pig at home. And so this is one of the things that works best for my setup at home. I just want to point out that what you do with the whole pig once you get it into your home, or anywhere, like any facility, it almost always depends on what you have on hand. I could have gone out and gotten a bunch of cool extra tools like humidity gauges, or dehumidifiers, or temperature controls, or somehow modified my fridge to do to create a different environment, like a very specific environment for this pork to age in. But we're just going to do this first round with probably the most bare bones version of pork preservation. And so that is why we're doing a lot of just straight up dry aging. So I did want to talk about, let's see, the pig itself was about 90-ish pounds, 95 pounds once it got to my home. Which means that the pig itself, that's relatively small. For people who don't know, 90 pounds, 95 pounds is a small pig. I think I'll be posting a video on YouTube later that shows the entire pig, and you can see it doesn't take up very much room on my table here, but it does. I mean, there still was a whole pig. Anyway, so the point is that it's a relatively small pig. And so something I did want to point out to y'all is that this is the loin section, which this is where you typically will get your pork chops from. And I don't know, I just want to show the relative scale because it's not a very big loin. My hands are not ginormous. What can I show you for scale? This is an iPhone SE. the one from that came out in 2020. And so that's like relative size, iPhone for scale. So anyway, like sometimes, so pay attention to someday when you're in the grocery store or at a butcher shop and you see um, a pork chop here that's lined up with the face of the chop, and you see a pork chop, pay attention to the size of the chop relative to like what your phone looks like. Again, this is an SE, so it's not the biggest phone out there, but this is not, that is to say, this is not a huge loin. I've definitely seen chops be like super ginormous compared to this, and I think it'll be more clear when we look at the Boston butt or the Copa that we have aging in there. And so, yeah, so this size is like not your typical size for a pork chop or a pork loin, which is why I left it as a saddle. That was another thing, was that like at around 100 pounds, like an animal like that is like really similar to more of like a sheep or a lamb or a goat that you would find rather than a pig, because like typically pigs are going to be around like 200 pounds or so at the point that I had gone it. And so anyway, I took inspiration from the sheep and lamb that I've seen broken down. And so I cut it like this to age in the fridge. And you can see from the underside, it's doing really well so far. There is a little bit of like moisture pooling here and here on like the very bottom edges. So I think, and I feel like, spoiler alert, I'm pretty sure I've seen that happening on like the other roasts too while I've been checking up on them. I hope the lighting is okay. Please let me know if it's like too bright or whatever, and like you can't see, if it's like blown out to the point that you can't really see detail. Yeah. So, and then full disclosure, the end of this, like I didn't cut that very smoothly. And then same with the other side. I can show you like where there's a little bit of a dent. And the point, and one of the things that you want to pay attention to when you're dry aging is to have as smooth as possible surface, so that bacteria doesn't have like a little port in the storm to hang out in. And so it's important to do your best to provide like a really flat, smooth surface for the exterior of your meat. But I wasn't able to do that this time around, and I don't really want to waste it. Like I feel like this stuff is the little the little bits of like unsmoothness here. Sorry, wow, it is like early in my brain. I don't really have words just yet. Let me do this real quick. I hope the music can still be heard, but dang, that was like messing with my brain a little bit. Anyway, so the smoothness is really important to prevent unwanted bacteria from finding a port, like a harbor to stay in. And so I didn't really achieve it that well in this particular roast. Like, look, you can see a little bit of like not smoothness here. If I had done this on a bandsaw, like what normally happens, or if I even used my saw, like my hand saw, to do this cut, it probably would be smoother, but I just went with a knife this time around, knife and gravity. And so there is a little bit of like indentation here and a little bit of like frayed edges on both ends of the roast. And the way that I'm trying to mitigate any extra bacteria growth in those areas is that the other day, I sprinkled a bunch of kosher salt, like a really generous amount of kosher salt, like more than you think you would for seasoning purposes, because it was more about drying out those areas and making it inhospitable to pretty much any bacteria. Yeah. And so moving forward, like I said, the edges here and here are just a little bit squishier than I would really want them to be. Like it's a little bit not as dry. Like the pellicle isn't starting. I guess the pellicle isn't really starting up anywhere just yet, but there's definitely a good amount of moisture on both edges here. Not so much in here, but here and here it's staying a little bit moist. So I'm just going to turn this guy over for a day or two, check on him tomorrow, and possibly the next day as well, to see like how that surface is going. Okay, so the next guy I want to talk about is this one. He's one of our little ham roasts. And I have 4 ham roasts to show y'all. Because essentially the legs on this pig were so small that like I could really only get the 4 roasts out of him. But I'm really excited. It's smelling really good still. So this guy is pretty much the sirloin tip. It includes the bone. You can see him there on both ends. And this one is like the least cute because it has like this skin situation that is like, again, not smooth, but I kept it on there because there is the possibility, well, there was when it was still a little bit more pliable. There was a possibility of maybe like tying it down so that it would just barely cover the surface of the meat. Because like, look, if you trim out some of this fat and then just like shove the skin down and then tie it up, you can see that it would have pretty well patched up like this end. And so it would have been like a really beautiful skin on roast. But that's not really happening now because it's drying out, and that's okay. What I want to do with this guy is preserve the skin. Actually, for all of these, I'm really interested in preserving the skin because that provides a little bit of a barrier of protection for the meat itself. Like the exterior is what's going to take on the quote unquote the rot. And so that's why typically when you're dry aging, you want to leave your cuts bone in and skin on and like as generous a fat cap as possible. Because that's the exterior is what's going to experience any of the symptoms of what you would call rot or like becoming inedible. Whereas the interior of the meat is it's typically sterile. I mean, it's sterile until you cut into the animal. But the meat on the inside is what you want to experience, like the enzymatic breakdown. And that is what's going to cause the flavor and texture changes in a way that is still going to be edible and likely delicious. So that's this guy. He's one ham. And I'm honestly like kind of wondering if I should name them something instead of just numbering them. But anyway, same with this guy. The bottom edge is very slick right now. It's really moist and like maybe you can see that it's like shiny as opposed to like this part here that is not at all shiny. But yeah, so I'm also going to flip this guy over. I did also write up little cards for each of them. I don't know if you can read it or if it's like weirdly reversed. But I just wanted to note like what the cut is, what day we put it on. What I really should have done is weighed them. Oh, I guess you can weigh them now. Hang on. Let's see about that. Should I weigh in grams? Probably. Okay, so that is just under 2 kilograms. That is honestly like what I should be marking. So what I want to use these cards for is not just to like keep track of what cut is what and like what day I started them, but also to maybe track some of the statistics in terms of like what they weigh and like what they look like. So I'm going to put 1948 grams and let's say slick, moist bottom. Turning. Yeah. And so I'm really interested in keeping track of the progress of these guys and like their statuses because yeah, that's how you learn. So let's see if this roast might be a little too heavy for this scale, to be honest. Oh, I got an email. I got an email from the Washington Post. What do you think it's about? 43.18, I believe is what it says in there. It's hard. One sec. Oh, excuse me. 43.18 is what this guy is weighing in. Slick edges, turned. Okay. And so that's it for the first set of roast. Let's move on to the next ones. I'm so stoked that that scale can handle that big roast. Okay, so now we're looking at the Boston butt and another one of the hams. So again, I want y'all to pay attention to truly how small, how like remarkably small this entire Boston butt is. It looks like it's just the Copa cut, which I've done a lot on this channel and in the past. But look how tiny that loin is. That's so small. Like, look, this is a pen, a regular ass size pen. And that is the loin right there. Or rather, that's where the shoulder turns into a loin, and this large muscle, this large singular muscle is, yeah, like what you would know as the pork chop. And then from this end, you can see that there's a lot more variety in terms of what muscle it is, and you can kind of even see like the progression of the muscles as they go along the roast, which I think is super duper cool. But you can also see, as I'm holding it like this, how much moisture is pooling there. Now, that's, again, it's not something that I'm super concerned about because this is something we've seen in the past. When I did that sirloin a couple weeks ago, that's pretty much what we were seeing was at the bottom edge, even though it's like half an inch away from a bed of salt, there is like a lot of moisture that just like pools on the bottom. And I don't think it's getting enough air circulation across the top to like really make a difference. So we're going to weigh this guy, turn him over as well. Oh my gosh. Okay. So this guy is weighing in at 28.84. Slick bottom. Flipped. Yeah. So there's that guy. Doing pretty good otherwise. Everything smells really good, like nothing. It literally smells like nothing, which is a very good sign in my book. The smell test is definitely the one because oftentimes like looks aren't going to do it for you. But this one I'm really stoked on. Look at this adorable little ham roast. This is one of the boneless ones. Oh man, it's so cute. Like the skin covers the entire exterior, which I'm really excited about. And yeah, the bottom is a really nice cross section of the legs. It's a really smooth surface. Like the muscles are staying together really well. I'm really stoked. This guy turned out really nice. And there's a little bit of pellicle starting to form here, which is also a really good thing. So I'm going to weigh him up and then we're going to flip him because again, the bottom is very moist and there's even like a little pool of moisture. There's a little pool of moisture actually underneath both of these guys. Like these were both like very juicy cuts. And that's not a bad thing. It just is something to note. Here, let me note the weight and its status real quick. Slick. Bottom flipped. Okay. Yeah, one of the troubles is that I don't want the muscles to start separating and again, causing an unsmooth surface. And so I'm kind of wary about flipping them all over. But this guy will probably be okay. The skin's gonna hold them together, hopefully. Yeah. And anyway, no matter what happens, I need this pellicle to form on the exterior, and I need it to not be as moist, because the amount of moisture that's on these guys right now, like that's totally what is gonna make them turn. Like it's totally gonna make them not okay to eat. And it's gonna make them smell bad. So yeah, so we're gonna try to avoid that. All right, that's row 2. Okay, so now these are 2 ham roasts. One bone in, one bone less, both with the skin on. And everybody came off the carcass at the same time, so that's real nice. Looking really good, smelling really good. There's a little bit of what I was talking about when in terms of like it not being a smooth surface, but we'll see. This one, we're gonna try it out and see how it goes. Although this end is really nice. It's a very nice, like smoothish surface. I guess if I wanted to be like extra responsible, I would do what's called facing and cut a slice off of it that's pretty thin, but would smooth out the side. But again, we're going to eventually trim them down anyway. And like, I want to maximize the yield off of these guys. So I'm not going to do that just yet. But yeah, and again, the bottom surface is like very moist. So we're just going to weigh them up. Oh, this one's kind of a big one. It's 2069. Slick bottom. Flip. Okay. And then this guy's bone in. Ooh, there's a gland on here I should probably take off because, yeah, I wouldn't really want to include the flavor of the gland. Ugh. Hang on, let me get to a knife real quick. Oh my God. This is such, okay. Maybe some flaws in my set design. But yeah, so there's a little gland in here that I should have taken out. And it sucks because I was definitely like rushing while I was cutting this pig up because I just needed to get into the fridge like ASAP. And I was honestly just like nervous about, I mean, I'd never butchered an entire pig in a home setting. And so I was very nervous, or at least not in my own home setting, like other people's homes for sure, but not mine. And so I just wasn't really sure exactly like how it would all come together. But I'm really stoked that it has so far. Okay, anyway, okay, so all this to say is that I left the glands in here, and now actually like later on, I'm going to have to trim out a bunch of my old trim that I produced in this project. 4 grams, slick bottom. But I ended up freezing that trim because I knew that I wasn't going to have enough time because there's just like other stuff that has to get done. So I froze that trim and I'm going to be using it later. And hopefully somebody please remind me to audit that trim when I do decide to make sausages sometime. Okay, so we're going to turn both of these over. I'm pretty stoked at how they're staying together. I'll have to check later in the day to make sure that all the muscles are staying together and like the pellicle is starting to form, but typically it happens pretty quickly. Like it happened really fast on that sirloin. These two have a little bit of pooling of moisture at the bottom, but not nearly as much as that last tray did. Yeah. Oh, and another note about how much moisture is going to come off of these guys. That also has to do with a couple of the factors in terms of like how long ago the animal was harvested, how long it got to age in the cooler at the processing plant. And so we're kind of doing that part here. So this is a process that like happens to all of your meat in terms of like a quote unquote dry aging situation. Typically, Like beef will go for a few weeks, like 2 or 3. 3 seems to be like really special. Like I feel like a lot of people talk about aging their beef carcasses for 3 weeks and like they use it as a selling point, which like I'm pretty sure that's just like how it goes under normal like not normal, but like conventional circumstances. I don't know. You always have to accommodate at least a little bit for the process of rigor mortis, or rather, the more severe portions of rigor mortis that happen really close to the beginning of, sorry, that happened right after the animal has been harvested. So yeah, so anyway, we'll talk more about rigor mortis some other time, but that is to say, this whole dry aging thing is something that your meat goes through anyway. Oh, I forgot to do the smell check. Yeah, they smell great. Yes, they smell great. And someone was asking a couple weeks ago when I was doing uh, the sirloin, the top sirloin, like what it smelled like, and it really didn't smell like anything, which is the what you want to look for. All right. And so that was it for all of the quote unquote dry aging stuff. So now what we're looking at is bacon. We're looking at our curing projects. Oh my gosh, I'm so stoked at how these are turning out. I'm sorry to get rid of that glove. And so what we did yesterday, geez, was it only yesterday? Yeah, on the 8th. All of these are slabs of belly, or actually one of them isn't belly, or rather 2 of them aren't belly, but are rather part of the picnic ham. That's how young this animal was that the picnic ham portion was so thin that I was like, well, we're just going to make bacon out of this guy because that doesn't seem like enough trim. And also the belly only yielded 2 slabs. So yeah, we're totally doing it. Anyway, I rubbed them with a bacon cure that I made last year with brown sugar, kosher salt, a little bit of pink salt. There's a specific ratio for that, FYI, but I'll find the recipe for you later. And then I weighed out about 3% of the weight of each of these guys. Again, using this scale that I have here. Charcuterie projects are way better when you do stuff by weight and in grams. Oh my gosh, I'm so stoked at how these are turning out. And so I put like a scoop of cure mix on each of these. That was about 3% of the slab's weight. And pop them into the bag. I kind of rubbed it around just a little bit, but like not a ton. And like there's so much brine that has already come off of these guys. I'm so excited because that's what you want. You want the brine to form so that it like, well, so you want the moisture to come off of the bacon, first of all, like the slabs of belly themselves, because that's how you preserve stuff is you remove the water. And then the other thing that I'm super excited about is that it makes its own, because that liquid comes off and then it ends up sitting in its own liquid. Okay, it's not that. It makes its own brine. And so that will also help cure the other parts of the belly that didn't necessarily get the salt directly on it. So yeah, I'm super stoked. These are looking really good. I'm going to make sure. I've done this before in restaurant settings where it's just like a huge bin of them. And what you want to do is periodically, like once every, like halfway through the process, you want to flip them over so that the salt gets distributed evenly. And it's only been one day, but I'm really stoked at how these are looking. And so I didn't feel like doing like an entire bin of them in a home setting because it does get kind of sloppy. And so I have these in Ziploc bags, and something that I just want to make sure to do before popping them back in is making sure that the opening of the bag is flipped up so that we reduce the risk of any spilling coming out. Like these are sealed, like they're closed, but you never know. Stuff stuff goes weird. So you want to make sure that they are in fact sealed. And yeah, and that the opening edge is tipped up at least a little bit so that, yeah, you, with the moisture that's coming off of these guys, you want to avoid letting that just like seep out. So yeah, that's bacon. That's working. Let's see, it went up yesterday. And so these guys are really thin. So I like to check with their firmness. And to be honest, these guys are very squishy. So we're gonna check on these guys again in a couple days. Maybe on Friday we'll do another live stream, and then by Friday they will have been under. Yeah, that's crazy because it's a different first day. Yeah, so we'll do these 2 times a week. So we'll check on them on Friday, see if it's time to flip. Same with checking up on those other roasts too. But yeah, that's bacon. It's happening, y'all. I'm really excited. And the thing about house-made bacon is that it's like not a ton of extra effort, but it is significantly better than store-made bacon. Like when you make your own bacon, holy shit, it's so good. Anyway, there's that. Oh, yeah. Okay, and I have one last project to show with y'all, which is the head cheese. So I guess this bin could have held brine, but I super didn't want to deal with it. A bunch of like gross water like hanging out in there, or rather filled up to like here or so to fill it. That would be super impractical. So instead, what I did for the parts that I wanted to use for head cheese was I sprinkled them very liberally. And there will be an upload later on this month talking about all that. But I sprinkled them all very liberally with kosher salt. Again, more than you think you would for like seasoning. But not quite like caking on there. You'll see in the video. Anyway, again, because I don't have a brining situation, proper hardware for brining, I went with just plain salt to make sure that it gets desiccated and I don't give bacteria a place to hang out and grow and like spoil this meat. And it also works to eliminate some of some of the impurities. Like it gets rid of some of like the weird funky smell that you don't really want, but you get a lot when it comes to this guy. Cause like, look, there's just like a lot of potential for bacteria up in here. And I did make sure to sprinkle a bunch like inside the mouth and like up into the nose. And I even flipped him over and like got like the inside of the jaw. Same with the H-bone over here. This is the H-bone or his hip. And I sprinkled all up in there. Like, look, you can even see that it's like hollow. I don't want to like move around too much. I'm not trying to get my hands. My hands represent a lot more bacteria getting introduced to the situation, and so I don't really want to risk it. But yeah, I salted them a bunch. I even salted the trotters, which typically don't really need it. And I'm smelling these a lot to make sure that none of them smell rotted at all, because that's a huge indicator as to whether or not the salt is doing its job. And yeah. I always do the smell test because that's a really easy way and a very accurate way to tell whether or not anything is spoiling. And it's not. Everything smells really great. So we're going to wait. What's today? Tuesday. I'll probably actually make the head cheese tomorrow on Wednesday. And then, yeah, I'll record it and let you all know how it goes. And then we can all catch up on Friday, which I think is going to be the next time that I live stream about this stuff. So yeah, thanks to you all for joining. Even if you couldn't join during the live stream, please do leave any questions or comments in the comments section. I'll still see it and I can get back to you either on the next live stream or I can reply to you in the comments. Oh, you know what? Yeah, okay, so nobody asked any questions via the chat today, but a couple weeks ago, I went live and somebody asked something in the chat and I didn't get back to them in time, and then I was replaying the video and it never showed up again. So if you do have any questions and I don't get to you, I'm so sorry. But please do message me or pop stuff into the chat, or not chat. I mean, yes, do it in the chat if you can. But if I don't respond to you, come back and like just pop it into the comments. Because I've been like really stoked on the conversations we've been able to have like in the comment section. Because yeah, like especially a lot of people are like telling me their experiences with certain unsavory butcher shops out there, and so it's been really nice to like hear from y'all. I'm just checking to see if it's leaking on this side, and it's not. We're good, y'all. I like love this fridge. Anyway, so that's it for me. I'm gonna put this guy away, and I hope y'all have a nice day. Thanks so much. Bye.